They gave us these. But
Hello. Thanks for having me. Thanks. Hi, everybody.
are we going to go podcast style, or are we going to go
I don't know. You tell me. I don't mind.
style?
Yeah, I'll hold a microphone.
Danzig style?
That's like a hamster eating a water, or
Yeah.
some kind of an animal eating a salt lick. This is not a way to conduct an interview, I think.
Probably not.
Anyway, I'll bring this down. Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming out. It's good to see you all. Hi.
Woo.
Hi there.
Yeah.
How are you?
It's also good to see that Candlemass shirt. I have that Candlemass shirt also.
I'll move this up.
So, I like to do a little bit of what I like to call origin stories, and I know that everyone here is familiar with your work and familiar with you, so we will try not to get too pedestrian with some of those questions, and we'll be taking questions from you guys here a little bit later on. But I want to start with, because there's so many different things that you're passionate about, that you're good at, that all converge into these projects. We were just, back there talking about musical theater, and and then right before that we were talking about Gene Hoglan. Don't worry, we were keeping it very mellow.
Yeah, we talked about scary stuff and then pretty stuff too. So don't
Darkness
worry.
Descends, one of the best albums of all time. So, what first piqued your interest in? Let's start with music. Music that you grew up around, things that were playing around the house, maybe.
Yeah.
And then, at what point did you decide, okay, this isn't just something that I love, this is something I need to participate in. I got to be part of this.
First of all, I was lucky to have parents with okay taste in music. But okay taste means that they had it was like Billy Joel, and there was a Led Zeppelin record. There was Queen's Night at the Opera that I kind of got to discover on my own at some point, which was really exciting to just kind of pour through to be curious about a record, to not be able to see anybody's faces, and to just hear the music and to see who wrote what, and see if there was something that kind of connected the songs that Brian May wrote versus, Deacon or Taylor or whatever. So I just got to see last names and try to put this stuff together. So I was really interested in just opening up a record and looking at it. There was also a lot of really good pop music in the 80s. This is something I've been just keep on thinking about, is that it was still merit based. It was based on how good your song was and how much it connected to an audience, and that's how the radio was the radio.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
and especially pre-MTV, right? Where it's like,
Well, there was plenty of MTV, and there were exciting videos, and I was excited by the videos.
I love the MTV age too, but I'm saying in terms of merit, it wasn't so much a consideration like, can you also be an actor in this short film?
Right.
It was just more like, can you sing?
Can you sing? Yeah. But the music that was on, and also there were all these people from the 70s who were probably influenced by the Beatles that at some point got serious about making money, and they realized the best way they could make money was write a song that was probably the best song they could possibly write and try to move somebody emotionally, because that's where the money was. So as they're delivering emotion to you, they're also increasing their bank account at the same time. And for some reason, humans seem to work that way really well, until Clear Channel buys all the record station, all the radio stations, and somebody else is making all the musical decisions for us, and we start getting disinterested and finding something else like heavy metal to get us excited about things. So anyway, I live in a house where no one really played a musical instrument, but they had a couple good records sitting around. And whatever it was, whatever my cocktail of ADD, OCD, whatever it is that makes me kind of curious about things, really lit up towards music. And fortunately, my family moved when I was young, so I would always hang out with the weird kids. So I would always hang out with. I grew up in Illinois, in Springfield, Illinois. I was born there, and then I moved.
Do we have any other Midwesterners in here?
Yeah, any other Midwesterners? A couple of you.
Yeah.
All right.
Indiana.
Yeah, there you go.
Go on.
Very mild-mannered crowd of Midwestern.
Yeah,
That sounds about right.
It's our people.
Yeah. Yeah, so I moved when I was a kid, and I started hanging out with army brats and weirdos, and anybody that had kind of like a 1,000-yard stare. I was like, I have something in common with you. And then one day I met one of those ultimate army brat kids when I moved. My family moved from one house to another, and I was in a different school district, and I met my buddy Renzo. My buddy Renzo was a year older than me, and he was wearing, acid wash denim jackets, and he had like a mullet and a shitty mustache. and more importantly, he had a guitar, and he knew how to play it. And at that point, I was curious enough about guitar to have mowed lawns when I was 12 years old for a summer and buy one at Toys R Us. And it had a little speaker built in, and it really sucked. It really didn't play well, but I could like strum all the strings and hit the Bigsby style whammy bar and go and make everybody feel like they had diarrhea. So it was something. It was, but I looked at all the strings and I looked at all the frets and I thought, this is just impossible. No human can play this thing. And I didn't have a teacher and I didn't have any method or anything. But then I met Renzo, and Renzo said, "Come to my house after school, and I will show you how to play that guitar." And he did. Not only that, he showed me everything about music. He showed me who Iron Maiden was. He showed me who Slayer was. He showed me who Metallica was. He showed me who Yngwie Malmsteen was. He showed me who Joe Satriani was. He showed me who Eddie Van Halen was. I mean, I knew who Eddie Van Halen was, but he really showed me why Eddie Van Halen was Eddie Van Halen. He showed me who Led Zeppelin was. He showed me who Blue Oyster Cult was. Jethro Tull. This guy he was like 13 or 14, and he had a record collection that was better than anybody's, and I was his friend. And I realized this guy is a good guy to know. This is really important that I made this friendship. We're still friends. He was at my house a couple weeks ago. Awesome. But anyway, yeah. And so he showed me, in one day, he showed me how to play Iron Man, and he showed me a blues shuffle. He showed me, and muting, like palm muting. So I got it immediately. I understood what that was, and I thought, this is important. If I can get my guitar into it, I'm going to go home. I'm going to play Iron Man. I hadn't even heard the song Iron Man. I knew how to play I could play the riff, of course, because it was a parallel movement, and I understood what a power chord was and how important it was that day. So that was the big turning point. And again, at that age, 13 or 14, I think is such a crucial age for all of us, really, because I think in this, you don't have any money, you don't have any space, you don't have anything. The one thing you have is your ability to choose the music you're listening to. And I also had like Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction that had just come out, and Justice for All had just come out. King Diamond's Them had just come out. So all these records were like, those were my records. And I was making the decisions of the music. I was the DJ of my life finally, and I was empowered by all those ideas that I could choose my own music. And it scared my parents, and it scared other people. And I was like, yeah, fuck yeah, this is pretty good stuff. What else can I do with this? And then the other thing that made me really excited about guitar was that my stupid friend Renzo was better than me because he'd been playing like a year and a half longer than me. But about a year later, I was starting to get good, and I was chasing down Renzo, and I was like, "You watch your back, motherfucker! I'm coming for you. I'm gonna take that guitar, and I'm gonna just do sweep arpeggios all over your head, and you won't know what hit you." And so he's like, "No, you won't. Oh, no, you don't. You are never gonna be better than me." And I was like, "Oh yeah." He's like, "Oh yeah." And I was like, "You are on." So we were embattled and still very good friends at the same time. But also, if he was doing something that I couldn't do, I was like, fuck you, man. I'm going to stay up. I'm seriously going to put on a pot of coffee, and I'm going to learn how to do that, and I'm going to scare you tomorrow. So all that stuff happened. And meanwhile, Renzo, this is a really long answer, but this is such a crucial time.
I was about to ask you what Renzo's doing now, and did he keep playing? So
I'll give you the whole rundown. You can check out what he's doing. But the important thing was that one day we went into our local music store in Salinas, California. It was called Gadsby's Music, and we saw a poster on the wall that said "Guitar Competition. Enter here, and you can win this." And it was like some kind of Pearl Essence white Yamaha guitar that were like, it probably was worse than the guitars we already had, but we were like, free guitar if we play good guitar well enough, we get to keep a guitar and an amp, and there was like a pedal you could win. And there were rules, and it turned out, and seriously, in a very short amount of time, we decided we're going to enter this thing. Renzo was like, if I enter this competition and get Brendon to do this with me, at least I won't be the worst guitar player. I will be. So I was like, okay, all right. I know, good strategy. He's a smart guy. Good thinking. I need to find a worse guitar player than me to enter this competition, so I don't go. So I had about 2 weeks to prepare for this thing, and there were rules. The rules were, you had to do a piece of music that was original. You had to write it yourself. You couldn't be just doing like a Steve Lukather solo, just acting like it's yours or playing part of Eruption. You had to write an original piece of music, 3 to 5 minutes long, and it's got to showcase technical ability, musicality, and showmanship. And I was like, showmanship? I'm going to be looking at my shoes and scared shitless. But I really didn't know that just yet. So screw showmanship, musicality, and technique. Okay. So I had 2 weeks. In that 2 weeks, I was 15 years old.
And I was just going to ask, was there an age range, or was it like anyone?
Anyone can enter. So grown-ups could enter, you know.
That's extra scary.
Exactly. And I had no idea. By the way, all this scary stuff was stuff that I didn't consider until it was much too late. So in preparation of my ultimate humiliation, I would wake up early in the morning at like 5 or 6, and I'd play guitar and I'd practice finally with a real goal for the first time, a real actual goal. I'm going to play guitar in front of people. I was visualizing Eddie Van Halen and all these heroes of mine and how much, you know, they were enjoying themselves on the stage. I was writing a piece of music that I thought was kind of cool. And I would come home from high school at the time, I was a sophomore, and I'd take a nap, and then I'd wake up and I would play guitar till about 1 or 2 in the morning again, and then I'd wake up at 5 and I'd do the whole thing again. And I really had a regimen that was working for me. And in those 2 weeks, because I was focused on one particular thing, I was really getting better. And I was problem solving, and I was really kind of attacking the instrument in a way that I had never had before. So I was thinking, this is all working. Finally, the day of the show comes, and I realize why I can hardly breathe, and I'm scared. And I have no idea what fear really was until the end of this thing. So they make us go outside and warm up in the old music store, and then they lead you to where the competition takes place. The competition takes place at a grown-up bar. This is a grown-up bar in, like, I guess the early 90s. And with, you know, truck drivers and cowboys and stuff. This is Salinas. This is like kind of like it's a farm town.
And were these people that were just at the bar anyway, or
they were there because their lives aren't working for them?
Okay,
and
so
they were drinking too.
So they're not necessarily there for the guitar competition.
Some of them may have been, but most of them, I think, were just depressed. So at some point, I draw a number, and I'm gonna go and wait in line. And it's a freezing cold, like a San Francisco kind of night in the fall. So you're just frozen. Your strings are out of tune. They finally call my name. I go on stage, and there's a Marshall full stack, which I've never understood. Like, I played at whisper volume. I have a brother on one side of the room and a sister on the other side of the room. And I was sitting there trying to go, like, you know, do Paul Gilbert, like, diddly, 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 and just so they don't wake up in the middle of the night. So I'd never heard myself loud. And boy, oh boy, I wasn't ready for it. It's like somebody, you know, when somebody draws your picture, a caricature, and you go, oh, I had no idea that I looked that way. But that's what that amplifier did for me. It made me a caricature of myself, and it was not very pleasant. Gave you a jump scare? Whoa. Yeah, it was terrifying. So they said, what kind of sound do you want? And I was like, distortion?
Heavy?
Yeah, heavy, I think. And then there were local radio DJs there. They said, here he comes to the stage. His influences are Joe Satriani and Eddie Van Halen, Brendon Small. And then that's where I kind of blacked out. My parents asked if they could come to this thing and watch me play, and I said, oh, no. This is for me. I got to do this by myself. And then my sister, who was like a cheerleader at the time, said, I want to come too. And I was like, that's cool. Bring your friends. And then, which I shouldn't have done because I really humiliated myself. And then there I am on stage. Let's just cut to the middle of it. You just like cut right in the middle of the scene where there's like a smoke-filled room because everyone could still smoke inside back then. And I am on stage, and the sound that's coming out of the amplifier sounds like I'm strangling 6 individual cats. You know, and it really is sounding bad. And I've never heard myself play this badly, so I'm just as surprised as everybody else is. But I had lost control of my body in some way. And I remember a time at one point I realized I was in really big trouble because I went up to go. I think my E's out of tune, and my hand was bouncing around so much that I was like, I think it's fine. and I went back and I started playing, and and try to work. It really was
accidentally tapping on your way back.
Yeah, I went there that day to become a great musician. What I became was a great comedian, and inadvertently, because I was the joke, and it was terrifying. And seriously, The rest of it's. I remember like one point where I saw my sister in the sea of people, and she's just like looking at me like, "What's happening?" And I was looking at her like, "I don't know," and it really was an awful situation, and an important awful situation, because our third friend would end up like he had no fear of an audience, no fear whatsoever, and he could just play, and he was an important guy. This guy, Aaron Ballesteri. He really could play, and he taught me a lot of like how to actually play fast, how to lighten up, how to let, just lower your gauge. If you want to do the stuff that like Eddie's doing and do all this stuff, lower your string gauge, lighten up on your right hand, and here's what you can like hammer on all this, you can do all this really cool stuff. Anyway, that guy won, and me and by the way, Renzo was in this competition. He didn't fare out so well either. No, he did not. He was just like me. He kind of folded under pressure. It's like at the beginning of Saving Private Ryan when the boats come up on Normandy and it just opens and everyone just gets shot, and that's the end. That's how me and Renzo were. So fortunately, he shared my major disappointment. He decided to go the other way. He decided to play acoustic, and he had cooked up some kind of thing that was kind of like the intro of Crazy on You. Like some kind of like cool, fun thing. But he didn't bring a strap, and he sat there and he played acoustic guitar on his knee, and his knee was bouncing, and he was hitting himself in the chin with his guitar. So we were a couple of real fuck-ups, I'll tell you. We were really had a long way to go, and we were struggling, and the scary part is that we were doing this in front of an audience, and they were seeing us fail too. The kind of failure where this happens in comedy occasionally, where the audience just at some point just averts their eyes and would rather just not believe that anything is happening anymore. So that happens. That's what Renzo and I did to this audience. We had a long, slow ride back home in dead silence, and I went back home. It was late at that point. My parents, I checked in, and I was like, "Mom, Dad, I'm home." And they were like, "How was it?" And I go, "It was fine." And I like went to my room, and I had my guitar still in my hand. And I flung it open, and I looked at my guitar, and I looked at my little fat hands, and I thought, "What happened out there, guys? What happened?" Because this is the point. There was so much anguish that happened. Maybe you felt this way. I mean, I think everyone does at some point. But I definitely did it nice and early, and it was something that I finally loved the guitar, and I was really like in anguish, in total, thick, horrible anguish. And I looked at my guitar, and I thought, this is awful. This is the worst. I've been going around shooting my mouth off, telling people that I play guitar. "Oh yeah, I could play the beginning of Guns N' Roses, like I can play Sweet Child of Mine." And then everybody saw me, all the kids from high school, and they're like, "You are delusional. You can't play that thing at all." And I was like, "But if I'm really, really relaxed, I can."
If it's whisper volume and if
if everybody pretends to be asleep, I can do it. Yeah. So it was like something like along those lines. So that's happened.
So did you win or?
I did not. I did not win, but I did make myself a deal, and this is the best thing I think I ever did. There was like something about the guitar and not wanting to quit was an important thing, but I also thought at that night, I go, this is where you quit this instrument. This is where like what stories tell you. This is where you go, you know what, I'm not cut out for this. I don't think my spirit's cut out for it. I don't think my heart's cut out for it. But what a shame, because I really like this thing a lot. Then I said, wait a minute, hold on. Before you quit, before you do anything like that, before you close the case and kick it under your bed, did anything good happen whatsoever? And I thought, well, no, you know what? Actually, in those past 2 weeks, that practice regimen that I kind of created for myself, I got better. I know I did. I know that like I understood the guitar in a new way, and I understood problem solving, and I understood that if I don't do this as much, I can get. So I understood like the physics of guitar just a little bit more. And if I put that kind of concentrated time, I know I'm going to get better. So I made myself a deal. If there is a competition the next year, I'm going to enter it. And I'm going to do better than I did this time. That's it. That's the challenge. But I have to keep up this exercise regimen from now until then. So I'm going to wake up early. I'm going to take a nap. I'm going to wake up at 5 o'clock. And I did it for a really long time. And I went to the next thing, and I did better. I did much better. I did a lot of sweep arpeggios. It was really glorious. But I didn't win. But on the way out, one person stopped me as I was getting into my car and said, "Hey man, you got robbed." And I was like, that's it. I keep playing. I'm going to keep playing this thing. So that was, seriously, but I realized that anguish and that fear and all that stuff, and experiencing that early was, the most helpful thing is it made me realize how much how much more I can take before you can make me stop. I have to just keep going. So, and no one else told me. It was just me versus myself. And I realized that's what this guitar is. It's me versus myself. The whole thing is, and it always has been. And if I can figure this out, I bet I can figure other stuff out. So that was it.
I'm curious because you knew you were better than the way you were performing that
Yeah.
first time. Is it worse to bomb, when a comedian goes up with their best jokes, their best bits, their set that they've worked out and they bomb versus bombing not at your best, where it's like, I was better than that this morning. What happened? I don't know which is worse.
Even if I'm with an audience that is not the audience that would like these kinds of jokes, that I can do this tomorrow night and I can get a different reaction. But you know what? What you realize is that there's no final performance in anything. Everything is rehearsal forever. That's like whatever you do. If you want to stay loose and have fun, remember whatever it is. Even if they're filming, if they're taping you, if you're recording a record, whatever it is. Any live performance is just just swing at the bat. You just step up to the plate again, and maybe I'll hit a triple, maybe I'll bunt, but I'm going to play no matter what. And that's comedy, and that's music, and that's any live thing. As long as you can remember that even the final thing is still a rehearsal. Just remember, it's still, and that as playful as you were and as loose as you were in any of your rehearsals, from an acting scene to guitar to whatever. I mean, like, if you're just in the moment enough and experiencing some small amount of creativity, alertness, and play, the ability just to play and go, you know what? And I've played guitar. I've played so many shows at this point that I know that having the ultimate perfect show kind of won't exist. I mean, I just toured with Death Clock for 2 months. And every single night, it was myself, Gene Hoglan, Brian Beller, and Pete Griffin. So they both switched off and played bass at different times of the tour. And then Nilly Brosh. And the greatest thing about us leaving the stage, I'll go, hey, Gene, how was your show? And he goes, I don't want to talk about it. Nilly, what do you think? She's like, God damn it, I fucked this up. And I go, what about you, Beller? He's like, yeah, I don't even want to talk about it. And I really like that the worst audience in any room is for a Death Clock show is on that stage. Yeah. And I think it's just something, but seriously, that's our job, is to be critical of ourselves, to internalize it, to not showcase it to the audience like, oh, I'm pissed off, I missed a note. But what's going to happen is, naturally, if you challenge yourself with hard enough material, mistakes could happen. The question is, how quickly can you correct them? How quickly can you circumvent that and correct it? As quickly. Thank you for those 2 claps. In this room, it's like a standing ovation. It's really good. Yeah, thank you.
For Midwesterners,
that's really, that's like saying I love you.
Yeah.
I love you too, whoever did that. But yeah, so that's what I think, is that there are challenges. I'm really critical of myself, and it's important that I'm critical of myself. It's important that I'm nice to myself also, about, like, oh, you get them next time. Comedy is so great. I mean, you can get addicted to comedy, where you just keep going just to see if you can just do a little bit better, do a little bit edgier, do a little bit, get a bigger laugh. You can just, and even if you did a bad show, I'm going out tomorrow night. I'm going to say I'm going to erase that last show and I'm going to push it forward. So there's something about, I think, knowing that there's never a perfect thing out there waiting for you is an important lesson that I wish I had learned earlier. But it's just so happens that's the way things are.
And that's what's great about live performance. I mean, you and I spoke about this another time recently, but with art, whether it's a song, whether it's a TV show, a movie, a book, it isn't really finished until it's released out into the world, And
oh, absolutely.
You can be tinkering, and it's like a painting where it's like, I can put another brushstroke here. Like,
absolutely. No, I mean, I remember, like, I was reading a David Mamet book where he talks about an artist who breaks into the Louvre to touch up their own painting, which says that art is never finished, it's only abandoned. In our case, we run out of money, and this is the thing. Here it is, folks.
You run out of money, and you run out of deadline extensions.
You run out of, but you do run out of, like, money means deadline. It means all that stuff. So when you're making a record, or if you're making a TV show or a movie, whatever it is, you have to go, all right, this is going to be a combination of an idea that I think is interesting, plus my ability to solve problems, to it's also the amount of resources I have financially and the team that I'm working with, and it's also a combination of that and my taste at the end of the day. If I'm directing and if I'm writing it, what is my taste? How can I get this as cool as I possibly can? And all that. And so that's what it is. Each little thing is that little combination of time, resources, and your own personal taste.
So let's talk about the entrance of comedy as, you know, sort of these multi-passions. For me, the first time I heard or saw Motorhead was performing on the Young Ones. And that, you know, and of course I had no way of knowing this as a kid, but finding out later that the Young Ones got a different kind of funding from the BBC if they could be classified as a variety show versus a sitcom.
Yeah.
So that's how they would just integrate these, you know, it was literally Motorhead just playing in their living room, or, you know, Madness, like all these great bands that was discovered. But so I think I, for whatever reason, always had that association that, you know, metal and comedy, specifically metal, but music in general, could coexist. And it's not necessarily Weird Al, who I adore, but
sure.
but there's something in there where there's a sensibility. What was your genesis there? You know, I mean, connecting the dots.
I loved comedy growing up. My parents had good taste in comedy, so. So every once in a while, my parents would say, like, oh, hey, this is an old movie. You should check it out. It's on TV. Those are the Marx Brothers, and they all play musical instruments. You may want to be interested. And then you find out that Chico is a virtuoso piano player, or Harpo is a glorious harp player, and then even Groucho plays guitar. Anyway, and then they have just amazing writing and silly, stupid-ass bits that just make you giggle. And I thought, okay, that's really cool. There's like this virtuosity in comedy kind of there. I'm seeing this happen. Victor Borge, I remember there were like, so first of all, The Young Ones was a TV show that we probably found on MTV in the 80s, right? But it was a British comedy show, and it was this kind of counterculture absurdism show where, you know, there were like just crazy sketches in a story, and sometimes the characters would die and regenerate and come back to life. It really inspired, I think, The Simpsons, and even more so, I know that Get a Life, which is one of my favorite shows ever, was inspired by The Young Ones. They said, let's do an American The Young Ones, and Chris Elliott was on board and all that stuff, and Chris Elliott's a comedy hero of mine, who I would later get to be a voice on Metalocalypse as well. But I was watching Monty Python. I was watching SNL, old SNL. I was watching Martin Short, who I thought was a genius as a kid. I loved him. I was Albert Brooks. I was interested in when I was 11, and Woody Allen and all that stuff. But yeah, all that stuff. There was so much comedy going on in the 80s. You could not escape it. It was just a huge kind of like surplus explosion of really great comedians that you could just watch, and they were really honed and really polished, and there were only, you know, and you could see them on TV. So all that stuff was happening. And then Spinal Tap I saw, of course, thanks to Renzo. Renzo's like, you got to see. So I saw it in the video store. I never knew what it was, and then Renzo's like, we're watching it. And I couldn't believe how funny it was, and I couldn't believe how dry it was, and how they were writing their own music and they were playing their own instruments. And it was probably one of the most kind of realistic music movies of all time for those reasons. That and maybe Amadeus, where I think they really got the music right. You know, when they're even speaking, when Salieri and Amadeus. If you haven't seen Amadeus, I recommend it. How many people have seen that movie, Amadeus? Okay,
oh, wow.
Good.
We are at the Musicians Institute. I love that.
Good to know.
And that's one of the rare examples where the director's cut is inferior to the movie.
You know, there's a reason they cut a lot of the stuff out, you know?
That's where you go, you know what, sometimes the committee is not so bad.
By the way,
yeah.
At some point, and if we have time later on, I'll tell you a story of Gene Hoglan's encounter with Milos Forman, the director of Amadeus. Long story short, Gene Hoglan finds himself auditioning for a movie. Milos Forman is directing it, and Milos says, I want you to be the lead in this movie. They were looking for kind of heavy-set actors to play the story of this cabbie who goes to Japan to become a sumo wrestler. Real story that actually happened. And they found Gene.
Yeah, no, I'm not laughing that it's a real story. I'm laughing at the idea of Gene.
and is across from, you know, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and, you know, Amadeus and, you know, People versus Larry Flint and all these other great movies. And there's Gene going like, yeah, I'll be a movie star. You know?
Sure. Yeah.
It was pretty crazy. Anyway, that's a little thing. So yeah, I just liked comedy a lot, and I would write sketches with my friends, and I had a show called Home Movies, and you know, thank you. But that's the other thing I was doing is I was sitting around and trying to get my neighborhood friends to act in stupid little bits and pieces. So I was actually doing that stuff too. So I was interested. I'd go, okay, it's Saturday. My friend's coming over. I got to charge the battery. I got to do this. I have to find a blank tape. So I would like have to prepare for creativity in some way. So I'd have to like do all this thinking and like be a producer basically, get the camera ready, get all this stuff ready. And so all that stuff was kind of in my head, but I don't think I was alone. I think tons of kids were doing that throughout suburbia in America. So we need one less person for this. Thank you. Okay, so. But yeah, so music and comedy to me, they were always kind of part of the same thing. Plus, I grew up on cable, so I was watching movies all the time. Then my family moved, like I said, when I met Renzo, and at that point, we lived in a place that didn't have cable or anything, so we had like 4 or 5 movies that I would just watch over and over and over and start like studying and almost becoming OCD about these movies. Why are they good? Why are they working? Why are they funny?
And they were.
Well, geez. I know what my college movies were, but the movies my parents got were like Amadeus was one of them. I remember Taxi.
No, we got the Mozart crowd in here.
Yeah, so. Yeah. And I think Taxi Driver was there too. Great movie about a guy who eventually learns to become a murderer. Nice movie to continue to watch. By the way, it's one of the best movies that's ever existed. The first incel, I think, really. It's the first story of the real first incel. Isn't it, though? Here he is, Travis Bickle. He's out there getting rejected by women, decides to shave a mohawk and do something horrible to the president. And it's the first, it really is. Taxi Driver, the story of the first incel. I think it is. Argue me out of it if you wish, but I think so. Anyway, my parents liked movies. There were like lots of other ones, but I think rewatching movies or realizing when we're renting them too that this is all we've got for a while until we return them. How much mileage can you get out of a movie rental? You know, back in the day, you couldn't just, you know, at some point you had to turn it back in and rewind it, you know? So those are some of them. Geez. Lost in America is a movie that I would watch over and over and over again.
I don't think I've seen that.
Albert Brooks and his wife are stuck in a marriage, and they're just plateauing romantically and professionally until they decide that they're going to quit their jobs, liquidate their assets, and kind of live on the land in America. The first stop they go to is Las Vegas, where Albert Brooks wakes up to find his wife, Julie Haggerty, has blown all of their money at a roulette table, and now they've got nothing. And so they have to eat shit and rejoin society. And that's the story. And it's not much, I mean, it's not like, it's not like Amadeus or anything, but it is so funny. And his attitude, this guy also, just this lead in a movie was such a complex character where he was irritated, he was rude, he was funny, he was emotional, he had all these things, and I was like, yeah, I understand how that feels. I feel all those crazy emotions. So Albert Brooks was interesting to me because no other movie had a character that was riding the line of your, of what you would accept as the lead character, you know, kind of dancing on the brink of, I'm not sure about you anymore. I don't know if you're my hero anymore. Yeah. But he's always pushing the envelope. And just seeing a movie where there is a lead that isn't totally perfect is really interesting to me. So I gravitate dark comedy. You know, I gravitate towards that stuff. I gravitate towards, old movies that I loved. Elaine May of Nichols and May. This is an old comedy team from like the 60s, but she became a great director. She directed a movie called The Heartbreak Kid with Charles Grodin, which is,
Charles Grodin, rest in peace.
I know. He was seriously a comedy genius, and Elaine May was a genius, or is a genius still. And it was really subtle, dark, and kind of, comedy of nervousness and irritation and actual humanity and moment to moment kind of thick, kind of tension and trauma and all that stuff. So I was gravitating towards dark music, dark comedy, and they were kind of getting closer and closer because I didn't see the difference anymore, you know. And I would just, by the way, the only thing I could do during that time, so that same kind of junior high, discovering heavy metal, discovering guitar, I was also in a class where they made us just free write. They'd say, okay, for the last half hour of this class, you're just going to write in a journal. And during that journal writing, I would just start kind of writing like a diary, like writing about how I felt about things, writing about someone that I had a crush on, writing about my dog, writing about anything. And I would just find so much freedom in just writing for no reason, just free writing.
What a great exercise for a school to have you do, by the way.
It really, and then I would
all be doing that still.
Anytime I had like anything that would happen in my life that was heavy, I'd go, I just need a pad of paper and a pencil, and I'm going to feel better eventually, because at least if I reread this at some point, maybe I can take a look at my life from an objective viewpoint as opposed to just being in the trauma, you know? So that was something that would be helpful to me, and I would also make my friends read short stories. I'd go, hey, I wrote something. Do you mind checking it out? And they would just be some absurdist kind of like crazy little dumb story or something. It's just an excuse to have fun. And so that was therapeutic to me. Guitar was therapeutic to me. And then once I got to music school, I would realize that my brain started dragging my body to places where comedy was happening. I didn't even ask for it to happen. I just started arriving. Like there's like some kind of beacon beeping, and I would just kind of like go to a comedy club and start seeing stuff. I started taking classes at Emerson College while I was at Berklee College of Music. Emerson College is a communication school where they teach writing, acting, directing. All the theater kids were there, and the theater kids were more interesting to hang out with than the musicians. We all know. We know what it's like hanging out with musicians. It's a little boring, right, guys? I mean, they you know, they're not much for conversation. We all agree. I'm putting myself in this category. We don't smell very good. We don't know, like, if there's a party, we don't know we should bring like a bottle of wine or something. We don't. There are a lot of things nobody taught us. A lot of us got good at our guitars instead of getting good at being social, right? I mean, that happens, right? And as by the way, as I've met some of my guitar heroes, I realize why they're so good at being them. They're good communicators on the instrument and off. And I realized I had to kind of get better at being a communicator outside of the instrument too. And I would start studying comedy. I'd start taking comedy writing classes where I had a spec script. By the end, a spec script is like a way you get a writing job as a comedian. So what you do is you take a TV show that already exists and you write the idea of like your story, but you use the characters' voices, you use the kind of rhythms of the show, you use the sense of humor of the show, and you're trying to prove to a head writer that you understand how to write for other characters. And it's a really fun exercise. So I wrote a Seinfeld back in, while I was still like studying music at music school. I wrote a Seinfeld spec script, which to me was like, I loved the show. I loved Jerry Seinfeld. And that show to me was musical too, because they would have like several themes, almost like from an Ornette Coleman solo to Counterpoint. You realize you have an A theme, a B theme, and maybe you merge them all into a C theme at the end. They start
harmonizing.
Exactly,
point,
and that's what Seinfeld would do all the time. They'd plant all this information, so that all that got stuck inside of my head, and it's all inside of Metalocalypse. Like, it's just even story planting, so they can all reach fruition at some point. Just like melodies. Can they all culminate at the end and make something bigger than the sum of its parts happen? So Seinfeld writing scripts. There was a sketch comedy class and I was really competitive once I got to Emerson College, because I thought, here I am in a room, I'm a musician, and I'm in a room with writing majors, and I'm going to write better stuff than them. I'm going to write better, funnier stuff. I would challenge myself to do a better job than the people whose major it is to do this, because wouldn't that be cool if I did that? So I really thought, I got competitive, and I really wanted to write the best stuff. So the first thing I would end up doing is writing. We wrote sketches, and the whole idea was we would vote in the class which sketches would get performed at the end of the semester, and we'd go to a comedy club and perform them at a show.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and
that's better than the guitar duel in the honky tonk bar or whatever.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. No, it was no. Also, because I wasn't alone on stage, so it was nice to have a group of people, and also it's easier to fuck up guitar than it is to fuck up a line. Really, guitar is like you're working in millimeters. If you're like slightly nervous, or you're not warmed up, you've been in the cold, that affects me like crazy. But I realized it. At that point, too, I was starting to flirt with the idea of doing stand-up, so I realized being able to move and being able to move my entire body and walk on the stage was like, oh, this is a lot easier than I thought it was, you know? I'm asking a lot less of myself than I am when I'm playing guitar, because guitar is really hard, especially if you're trying to do like really hard stuff. Anyway, it would get me to performing. It would get also that I wanted to write 100% of the show, because I was really ambitious and really, competitive. But I ended up writing like 80% of the entire show. So it was like an hour-long show, and I wrote like 80% of it. So I was like, good for me. I did that. That's my own personal challenge. And then that night I met another comedian who would also kind of helped me out a lot too, a guy named Eugene Merman, who's a really great comedian. He's on Bob's Burgers, but he was my roommate for a long time. And he was so funny, and he understood comedy really well. And so being around him and his whole world was really helpful and made the stage seem a lot more friendly than I thought before.
Like your guitar playing friend and as a kid.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. So hanging out with creative people is always really inspiring. People whose taste you like, who you go, yeah, you get it. That's funny. I agree. That's great. Because you meet plenty of people where comedy, some comedy works for some people and sometimes it doesn't work, But hanging out with people whose sense of humor you really kind of appreciate and look up to is very, very helpful. So
yeah, and it can sharpen yours too, right? If there's like a
absolutely, yeah. You don't even know
with people.
Without a doubt, hanging out with those people makes you go, all right, I have to get funnier and I have to get smarter. And I remember there was a point while living in Boston, going, I don't understand all these words in these conversations that these grown-ups are saying. I have to get smarter. And I have to will my stupid brain to get a little bit brighter than I am currently. So how do I do that? So I would seriously start reading books and trying to will myself into building the brain muscle a little bit more. So that was part of that. I don't know if it worked, but I definitely tried really hard.
So thinking about, it's obviously something everyone can relate to and hear. You love music. You start picking up an instrument. You're listening to songs, and now you're hearing them differently because you're kind of deconstructing them and trying to reverse engineer. So you can just something as rudimentary as like learning the riff or whatever. Yeah. Did you have a similar process when it came to stand-up and when it came to writing spec scripts and things like that? Did you find yourself more sort of, like you said, movies that you were watching over and over and over? Did you start kind of looking for the seams and trying to figure out how they're structured? And
yeah, well, I was definitely doing that. I was definitely, you'd have conversations with your friends who loved movies as much as you did, and you'd go, hey, this movie is great because of this, right? And you'd deliberate over those kinds of things. That was definitely happening, but I think what really happened was I realized that I was getting to the end of my music school career, and I did not know what to do beyond that. I was in big trouble, So I thought, okay, what the hell am I going to do with my life is the big question. I'm about to graduate, but I just found this whole comedy world, and this comedy world is really intriguing to me. And so I'm going to get like a temp job, and I'm going to answer phones, and I'm going to do comedy at night for a while. And guitar, I love you, but it's the late 90s, and no one's taking solos anymore. And it's a scary place for guitar right now. I don't know what's going to happen with this instrument, but I'm really going to start studying this comedy thing. I'm going to keep the guitar over here. I'm going to keep playing it, but comedy, I think, is taking over right now. And I was getting on stage a lot, and I was starting to get good, because you would have those nights where you bomb, but you'd also be in good company because your friends who are funny were also eating shit with you. It's always nice when that happens. So I got pretty ambitious, and I was writing more scripts, and again, the therapy of writing was nice for me. So I was writing more scripts, writing just ideas, just couplets or sketches or anything, or just sitting at a coffee shop and trying to make two characters talk to each other and seeing where it would go and seeing what I could do with that. And then somebody in TV saw me perform at the right time, and I really, really remember this because The show Dr. Katz was an animated show on Comedy Central with Jonathan Katz, who is a genius comedian who lived in Boston, and they produced this show in Boston, and I was in Somerville living with Eugene Merman, and we were doing comedy at nights, and we knew that this show, Dr. Katz, was done in Boston, and we know that we really respected the comedians that were part of this. John Benjamin, Jonathan Katz, Laura Silverman, and just the production team.
A really soothing show.
Yeah,
when you
but
think about
really,
it too, really.
it has something. Seriously, it's my natural sense of humor is subtle and quiet. For Metalocalypse, I have to seriously turn the amp up to 11 to go, all right, this is no longer subtle. It's so aggressive and so in your face. But my natural reaction is conversational comedy, which is kind of what that is. It's very dry. It knows that it's funny, and it's not pushing it in your face. Which, again, that's all I would do with Metalocalypse. But I really enjoyed it, and I heard the producer, because different comedians would come into our comedy club that were going to be on that show, and we heard that Louis C.K. was going to be on our show because he would come and do shows in Boston all the time. So I'd do shows where young Louis C.K. would be there all the time. And he was going to be on the next episode with Dr. Katz, so I knew the producers were going to be in the audience, and I thought, oh, I've got one bit that really works. And this guy, Ron Lynch, who... is another just one of the funniest people I've ever met, who's still my friend out here. He was also on that show. And I said, I have this sketch. My buddy that usually does it with me is out of town. Will you do it? And what I did that night was I did a sketch that was really stupid and really funny. And I knew where the table of producers were sitting. And I played to that table. And I knew that they knew this guy, Ron Lynch, really well. And they knew Louis C.K. And I knew that I hadn't even been doing comedy a year. But I knew that I could kind of lightly fool them into thinking I was associated with these two people who really had comedy careers. And I did fool them. And I was really funny that night. I was really lucky that it all worked out, but it got huge laughs in this tiny little comedy room. And then I got a call later on saying, hey, are you local? We're thinking of putting a show together. Do you want to go meet for coffee? And then we would end up developing home movies from that little situation. And that's how I got into TV and all that stuff. But fortunately, I was kind of ready for that situation where, because I had this stack of scripts that, I had a Seinfeld and I had all these sketches and I was generating stuff all the time. So I was very, very ready to become a TV writer. And the discipline of guitar, the discipline of school and all that stuff helped me to hit deadlines and to deliver, and to also... And failing in front of people also makes me think I can switch this joke out for a better thing. I can keep on improving the thing. It's not just one thing.
Art is never finished.
It's never finished. It's always a rehearsal. Yeah. So I can continue honing these scripts. And it all ended up working out. And again, I was with a group of people whom I respected a great deal, and I wanted to make them laugh. And I worked with another writer named Bill Broadus, who is just such a funny jokesmith and so great with character, that he was the guy that I wrote the show with, and we would go meet up for coffee, go away for 2 or 3 weeks, and come back with a script. And I wanted my script, again, the competition, I wanted it to be at least as funny as his, which is really hard to do because he's so funny. If not, I want him to be jealous of my script. And that's that kind of positive, me and Renzo, I'm going to be faster than you, I'm going to get faster than you, with guitar. Those kinds of healthy competitions are how you get good. Really, I think so. So that was happening at the same time. So I was developing my chops and then slowly sneaking music into the show. Or it was one of those situations where I knew. Before that, I interned at a jingle house in New York. 2 different jingle houses. This is also kind of an important part of understanding how to have a bag of tricks to use as a writer, as a composer, and how to write quickly. How to let your own taste and instincts drive something when there's no time and no resources whatsoever.
Where was the jingle house going? Was it broadcast commercials? Was it
yeah, it was broadcast commercials. So it was people doing Advil ads and sometimes local, but it was all in New York. I was living in Queens for a summer. My roommate was, this is also an important part of the comedy changeover too, is my roommate was interning at Conan O'Brien. So I found myself finishing up at 2 different jingle houses. One was called David Horowitz Music Associates. The other one was called Michael Levine Music. Michael Levine wrote the "Give Me a Break, Give Me a Break."
Break me off a piece of that football cream.
That's right. Yeah.
Nobody watch The Office? Come on. Sorry.
Yeah, but he was a one-house writer. We had a great studio, so we got to kind of learn the studio, got to learn Pro Tools, and ultimately, you know, I would be getting sandwiches for clients or getting them coffee and just kind of watching what deep post-production in a commercial looked like. And I thought, well, one thing's for sure, I don't want to be in post-production in a commercial. It doesn't seem like it's that creative after all. I mean, I'm sure I could do it, but I don't know that I'd be creatively fulfilled in this way. So, and then the other house was like seriously, this is like the 90s, you know, the later 90s, but still, houses were going from 2-inch tape to digital around that time. That's crossover was happening. So there was another house where there was like an old guy with a hat and a pipe who was like, he was the copyist who would write with a pencil and had the most beautiful handwriting, give it out to strings and all that stuff, and I have to help set up microphones and, you know, arrange cables and all that stuff. So that was something else that I did. So I got to see a real thriving. It was like mad. It may as well have been the 1960s or the 1950s. People smoking indoors, you know, pipes and, you know, and people in tweed jackets.
Handing the long hand to the typist who's typing it
exactly,
up.
yeah.
That's how SNL was through the 90s.
Right,
so
yeah.
You know.
It really was like archaic, and I loved it. It was really cool to be there. But I found myself trying to get out of work as quickly as I could, wrap up the cables, make the coffee for the next day, get everything ready just so I could run as fast as I could to 30 Rockefeller Plaza and be a fly on the wall with Conan O'Brien, seeing what was going on there. And also, that was the summer where I thought, this is it. I'm going to start doing stand-up. And I cold called a person who would end up being a friend of mine like decades later. And I said, hey, you don't know me. This is what you would do back in the day. You didn't know anybody. You go, hey, listen, you don't know me. Somebody gave me your number. My name's Brendon. I understand that you did stand-up comedy recently. Can you talk to me about that? And seriously, that was the call. And he goes, yeah. I go, no, I'm vetted. I'm a friend of Jed's. It's cool. And he goes, yeah, well, okay. Well, you go and you find a guy in a comedy club, and usually you can spot him, but they're the guy who books the place. He's usually kind of pissed off and nervous in the back, looking at us watch a lot, wondering why the comic's going on so long and bombing. Go find that guy and tell him you want to be on an open mic show. And I go, okay. And I go, what happened? He goes, and then you wait till about 2 o'clock in the morning. And he go perform for
5 other comics.
Yeah, for the guy that's vacuuming in the corner. Yeah, and that's how you get on stage. And somebody sticks around and still trying to sell drinks or whatever. And that's how you did it. So I was like, okay, good to know. Your conversation is making me have heart palpitations as I'm thinking about stand-up. It's terrifying. So I will work towards that, like I worked towards my second year of guitar competition. And a year later, I would end up kind of having the nerve. And seriously, it's like quitting smoking. You put an X on your calendar and you go, that's the day I quit no matter what. Or that's the day I start doing something new. No matter what that day is coming, I'm mentally preparing. So all that stuff, and all that just watching writers have to write quickly, right? Watching people with, you know, there's a guitar guy, there's a keyboard guy, this guy's really good with strings. There's a house where there were a lot of, this guy can do dance beats, he can program shit really well. Okay, cool. So I'd go and kind of bop around and watch people do this stuff, and it was really enlightening because at the end of the day, it's really your bag of tricks. The things that you like, the things that you learn, like why do I like this song? Why is that change from the verse to chorus so cool? What are they doing in those chords that's making my ear go crazy? Why is it when Brian May goes from this chord to this chord and climbs up in this way that makes my ears lose their mind? I get it now. Oh, then I'm in music school and I'm going to the right. I know what that is. Those are like just subdominants over here, and this over here is like fives of, but this is totally traditional harmony, and that's figured bass, and I understand it now, and now I know how to do it. I've isolated and I've circled all the things that drive my brain insane in a great way musically, and I'm going to figure out how to do that, and I'm going to incorporate that into my bag of tricks, right? What else do I know? Well, contradiction really helps. One part of the song is, you know, regular tempo. The next part of the song is halftime. Oh, there's a good shift in that. Why does that make me feel right? Okay, cool. Put that in my bag of tricks. So I just kept on circling things and putting them in a bag of tricks so that if I were like held up at gunpoint and somebody said, write me a jingle, I could write something that would pass and maybe even make them want to buy the product. Who knows? But yeah, so that's the idea of that, is like seeing people in the shit having to deliver the goods, you know, where musicians were actually like, no one could do this. They didn't have AI. They couldn't just like, they couldn't just, and it was before like song libraries and stuff like that.
You had to all be in the same place to collaborate and talk about what you're doing. It wasn't.
You did.
It's not like, I put that in Dropbox. You're not texting that to somebody.
You had to. Well, I mean, it's like go away and come back. But you were in a room, and sometimes people were sorting stuff out together. Sometimes it was one writer just like hitting his head against the wall. But I got to see creativity in action, and then I also realized, not for me. What I have to do, if I'm going to utilize any musical part of myself, is to create a project and hire myself as the musician. And that's what I would end up doing. So Home Movies comes, and there I am waiting with my guitar, going like, this show could use music, and so we're like, but these are kids. Let's not fix anything. Let's let everything be out of tune. Let's just let it be trashy. I'm so I come from this whole school of polished stuff. Let's not be polished. Let's be trashy. Let's do it. Come on. And everyone's like, okay. So that's how I got into that.
I love it. Before we get off of this late 90s era, everyone collectively will indulge me, especially you. You mentioned how in the 80s there was so much comedy. There was such a boom. There were, HBO specials. There was young comedian specials. There's all this stuff that we grew up with, all these great shows, different sketch shows, of course SNL. And then, people say we're living in a comedy boom right now. Again, there's this explosion of comedy and all that. What were the late 90s like in comparison to how big it was in the 80s, how big it is now? Was that a rougher time than maybe one of those other eras? And
I'll tell you, the late 90s in comedy was pretty beautiful because there weren't as many mainstream comics. Or the idea of mainstream comedy was kind of starting to become rote. We all knew the stories of like, an airplane joke or, men are different than women and all these different things. So we were all kind of exhausted by that in the late 90s. And a show that was one of the best sketch shows that ever existed was on TV called Mr. Show. And that to me was like a high watermark of virtuosity in comedy. Because the way that they wrote those sketches, the way they put them together, the way that they were irreverent, the way that they were rude and fucked up and dark and dirty and all that stuff piqued everything inside of my brain. And I thought, this is the next class ahead of us, like ahead of me and Eugene. And they're geniuses. We've got to become friends with them somehow. How do we do this? And we'd sit there and go, we could go to a festival and go try to meet. So we were really interested in meeting these people who we really thought were like David Cross and Bob Odenkirk, And so eventually, because of that association with Home Movies, I'd get to incorporate people like that into the show. People from David Cross to like Emo Phillips to, at the time, Louis C.K. And, tons of people that really were influential to me. So alternative comedy, Janine Garofalo. There was like this whole kind of boom of a little bit more subversive kind of comedy.
It's kind of like when Patton Oswalt's coming out.
Patton Oswalt, without a doubt. Yeah, exactly. All that whole crew of people were coming out and really influencing me. So, like I said, they were the class ahead, but they were so intelligent and so funny and so unique that they had brought a new kind of just landscape to comedy. So to me, that was really Tenacious D. All that stuff was kind of happening at the same time. So I was like, yes, 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 please more of this. And they worked so hard and they honed all that stuff so much. But they were like a really great, just huge band of intelligent, funny, different personalities all watered into one. So that was a big deal for myself and my friends at the time.
That crew of what they called, alternative comedy at the time, because we always name things to count and measure them. It was very much musical in the sense that it was like a music scene. Like that was like a punk scene or a hardcore scene or, thrash in the Bay Area in the 80s or something like that.
It was
they all knew each other and did shows together and
Yeah, so coming to Los Angeles from Boston. I moved to Los Angeles when I was still doing Home Movies. And because we never knew, because the show never had an audience when it was on the air. It really kind of got a lot more popular after it was finished and the DVDs came out. But we were making this show, and every time we finished the season, we were like, well, I wonder if we'll ever work again. But we never knew, and months would go by before they'd go, look, we're giving you another season, okay? It was like never like anything they were happy about. They're always like, we don't know what else to do. It's easier to keep you on the payroll. We've got all of your, W-9s anyway, so you may as well just keep working here, you know. But they were never that excited. Though they really did like respond to the show. It just never got an audience. So I can't think how anybody would be excited by it. Us, we were really happy making it. It was really fun. And that was where like that show, you'd write a lot, but you'd also throw the script away and just go with instincts and go on, all right, let's forget about the stuff, forget about the story I crafted. I'm going to go on a long run with either Melissa Galsky or John Benjamin, and we're just going to try to make each other laugh. And we enjoyed each other so much that feeling came through a lot in that show. But yeah, by that time I was kind of like, I'd snuck into that where like Mitch Hedberg was on the show. He did like voices on the show and he was amazing. I got to talk to him like as he was like reaching the top of his career too. It was so cool. It was young Mitch Hedberg. And I would just ask him questions. Like I would ask people stuff like this all the time. I'd bug people. How did this happen? How did you get here? What were you thinking when you did this? And I would just do like an interview like this all the time with people and usually they'd start talking and they'd say something. And Mitch Hedberger was at that point where he was getting development deals from all the networks, and I was just like, "What are you going to do? So you got all this stuff. What are you doing with yourself right now with all this pressure and all these ideas?" He's like, "Well, my forte is comedy, and that's what I'm going to do forever." You know, he just kind of like knew what he was good at, knew what he had like a North Star that he was.
He was like a sage too. You know,
yeah, so. He was a super sweet dude and super funny. But I was meeting all these people who I had. Was coming to appreciate and people that I already did appreciate, and it was a really cool place to be. And somehow I snuck into that room and I acted like I was supposed to be there, and I pretended enough for people to go, all right, just don't kick him out, I guess. And that's kind of how that happened. And then I kept my mouth shut mostly, and I was just like quiet and would ask questions.
Yeah.
I
love that. I mean, I think those are great lessons. I mean, first of all, you hear a lot about imposter syndrome. And if there's anything that makes me feel better about it is finding out how many other people have it. Seems like we all have it. And that idea of kind of fake it till you make it, but also asking questions and learning. And, you know, it's the Tony Soprano thing. Like, those who want respect, give respect. Which he never practiced, but he did say
and
it.
then he killed that person he was talking to.
Then he killed the person he said that to.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, it's exactly like you were talking about, getting in those rooms with people whose work you appreciated,
absolutely.
and then just soaking it up.
By the way, it's funny. I spoke to the graduating class here like a year ago, and I wanted to give some advice that I thought would be advice that I wish I'd gotten when I was coming out of music school. And one of them is that, you know, there is no real industry, really, and there never really, really was. It's a bunch of little islands of people kind of with their head down working. And from far away, it looks like one big thing. But the closer you get, you realize there are a lot of little inlets and little areas you can kind of cruise through. And you can just kind of like walk into a place and just be part of it. I mean, I thought about that in Boston. There's so much learning to do in Boston. I loved living there because you could just walk into a Harvard class and start. There's so many people there. What are they going to tell you? Get out of here. Stop learning. You didn't pay tuition. Like, it'll take them a while to figure out, and by that point, I kind of have a vague understanding of what you're talking about, or at least I know where to get the book or something. So yeah, I mean, you can just sneak in just about anywhere, and as long as you don't act like a total jerk, they may not kick you out. And you can sit there and learn and pretend. Again, fake it till you make it, but but by the time you get there, I think it's important to know that you care about the thing you're faking. I mean, again, there are plenty of things that I can deliver that can be really cool and fun, but there are plenty of things that I'm full of shit and I'm trying to figure it out as I go. You know, it happens every single day. Every new idea, a new song, new story, a new joke, a new script is rebuilding something from nothing and saying, hey, I've got this stupid idea. What if we did this and it ended this way? And then you go, okay, cool, let's do it. And then you go, all right. Let me write some stupid shit so that I can throw away and get to something that's better than that. And that's how creativity always is. It's never, oh, I've got it. And if it is, I don't think you can count on that to happen all the time. It's really a stupid, struggling thing where I was talking about how songwriting works sometimes, where I just feel like I'm at a slot machine and I'm pulling a slot and going, a shoe. Okay. Hopefully there's another shoe. No, a cat. Oh no. Okay. What do we have here? And a cherry. Okay. Well, I can't do anything with that. And then you pull it again and go, 2 lemons and a horse. That I can work with. I can turn that horse into a lemon.
Yeah.
You know, if I work hard enough, as long as I got those other 2 lemons, you know, that's pretty good actually. So I just think that's what that kind of stuff is all the time. There's no magic. There's occasionally you're lucky enough to know I have a certain mood or a feeling I'm trying to get across with a piece of music, from score to like a Death Clock song or something either tragic or something kind of, you know, empowering or something kind of bold feeling. Like, even knowing that, you can go, what does that sound like to me? And you keep on sitting with your guitar until you get it right. You're sitting with the piano until you get it right. You're asking yourself, you're the director of you. No, it's not there yet, buddy. You got to keep on working. Okay, well, what about this? What about that? What about this? Keep on writing. Throw half of it away. Throw 90% of it away. Oh, that one bar right there. That's worth the whole reason you came into your studio today. You got that one bar. That's good.
Yeah, so much of writing is subtracting, right? So whether it's songwriting or copywriting.
Yeah, it's writing too much and circling. I think of Pro Tools. If you work in Pro Tools or Logic or any timeline-based thing, it's a big sketchbook. It's there to be a big, ugly disaster, because somewhere in there, something good will happen that will inspire you to get to the next part. So I think keep that messy notebook open, be able to look at it, and again, I'll listen to it on at infinity times until I go, I've smoothed out all the bumps that I hear. I think this is a song that is worth listening to more than once. And ultimately, do I give a shit about it? Because this is a very selfish art form. And if we're not pleasing ourselves, then we are not doing the job. I really feel strongly about that. If we're not doing something that scratches an itch inside of our soul somewhere, then we're not doing, even if it's comedy, even if it's stupid, whatever it is, if it's not something that is going to make that 15-year-old, 14-year-old, 13-year-old me excited, then I'm not going to release it. I'm not going to do it, you know? I got to make that kid. That's that fucking awful judge with his arms folded, the Metallica shirt on. It's like, I got to make sure that kid's happy. Otherwise, I'm not allowed to do it. I can't rationalize it.
Make the thing you wish existed, right?
That's
write
a good one too. Yeah, make the thing
yeah.
you wish. Write the music you wish people were writing. Make the thing you wish people were doing. Everyone's gonna not give a shit until they see the completed thing, and then they go, "Oh, now I see what you're talking about." But yeah, I realized I was funny. I was also I remember doing comedy, and I'd see comedians bring guitars on stage and do like song parodies and stuff, and it always made me laugh. I always liked it. But I thought, I'm gonna involve music with this at some point. I'm really gonna do something that's comedy and music. And I don't know what it's going to be, but I know it's going to be hard, because it's got to be more than dragging an acoustic on stage. It's going to be like eventually, basically, in my head, I'm thinking it's Metalocalypse. It's probably the live show of Metalocalypse, where Death Clock, and it's a bunch of cartoons and these amazing players that I'm playing with doing something that they're really trying to get right as hard as they can, and going and putting all the work into all that stuff. I just figured it would make me exhausted thinking about doing something like that in the future. But I realized at some point you start shooting your mouth off, too. You start saying, I could do this, I can do that. And someone goes, you can? And you go, yep. And you lie your way through it, and then you put yourself on the spot, because a deadline is the most important thing an artist can have. Without it, we'll seriously scribble forever. But with a deadline, you start honing something, and you start saying, okay, it's time for me to get serious, because there may be an audience that checks this out. What can I do?
Without a deadline, you get Chinese democracy. We do have a microphone there. I was looking to see if there's one.
I think you're right to say that. You're right. I mean, and you need $11 million too to make Chinese democracy.
Democracy's got a few riffs. You know, they play.
Of course
their
it
songs
does.
now.
It's got some really great guitar playing.
There's a microphone here if you guys want to line up. If you guys have questions, we definitely have time to take a few. I do want to be the bad cop and say that it is a Q&A and not a meet and greet. So can I have a picture? Will you listen to my band? Can I have a hug? Are questions we discourage?
Also, just one question per person, please.
And just one question.
By the way, as you were getting ready for questions, you mentioned The Sopranos. And anytime somebody mentions The Sopranos, I have to mention that there's one little sliver of Metalocalypse in The Sopranos. Do you know that?
Yes. From the
Blue Comet.
There's a poster, right?
No. There's a Nevermore poster, and I think there's like Cannibal Corpse or something.
There's a bunch of Century Media and Roadrunner posters throughout the show.
But there's
in
a
the blue
clip.
in the episode, the blue comet.
There's in the episode, second to last episode of the entire series. There's a
Bobby
moment.
Bacala. Spoiler alert. Yeah.
The blue comet. Yeah, he's very fond of trains. And AJ's in an institution, and he's looking at TV, and it shows the first episode of Metalocalypse, where the stage drops on like 40,000 people.
I've been through The Sopranos 6 times, and I don't know why that wasn't.
I like
connecting in
to
my brain.
consider myself one of the cast members.
You're canon. You are.
It is.
You are Sopranos canon.
Absolutely. All right. Well, how do you do? Thanks for coming.
And also tell us your name and where you're from, and then your question, please.
I am Beast from South Central LA.
Hello.
So my question is, how do you get such a realistic dynamic with Death Clock? Were you in bands? I just feel like with every project I'm in, I always find a murder face.
Yeah, there's a murder face everywhere, and sometimes we're the murder face. Isn't it terrible? I think, well, you know, it's really funny. I've been talking about friendships that are creative. My buddy Renzo, my buddy Jed, who I lived next to, Eugene Merman. That room where I was studying comedy, we were all chipping in and talking to each other. Creative relationships are really funny and interesting and human and vulnerable. And I'm around them all the time. The writer's room of Metalocalypse was, at some point, Metalocalypse was very much echoing the making of the show was what the show looked like. There was a murder face. And that role would change. Somebody wanted something that they didn't have, and they'd pout, and they'd ask for more points, and they'd ask for this. And so we would just make fun of ourselves, really. And that creative relationship was like, I also look at bands and I think there's, you know, somebody that's like this kind of mystical visionary. There's somebody who does the heavy lifting. There is like, I heard that Eddie Van Halen would go and sneak in and re-record Michael Anthony's bass parts. I'm like, that's what Squiskar would do, that without a doubt. It's a murder face. Like sit on his hand and make it fall asleep for a little bit and go, all right, I'm ready to do it. And then, you know, like, I just think that kind of thing happens all the time. So it was all around us. We were trying to figure out, like, you know, I also, music school, being at Berklee College of Music, I remember there was like a German guy who was really gregarious, who would like make loud jokes and like make some kind of loud things happens and makes the whole audience listens. And then like it would just die, like the joke would die and I go, this guy's great. And then there was somebody else who was like from Russia and I was like, this, between this and that, there's this kind of like European kind of like a little bit of a language barrier, but gregarious and interesting. In Yngwie Malmsteen articles I would read, and I'd go, put all this wad into this one area, and then at some point you release them into like our improvisations. Myself and Tommy Blotcha would go, throw the script away, let's become these characters and let's talk and let's just see what happens. And we'd contradict each other. New parts of the character would just kind of come out of nothing. And if our foundation is kind of okay, like he's a guitar player, he's from Sweden. He thinks he's the greatest thing in the world. He's one of the most sexual people. He's so sexual that he's gotten past what's attractive and gone into another world of kind of sexuality. And they all have at this point. There's a lot of gender-bending humor throughout the entire series. And yeah, so you start kind of like putting these blobs together, and then you seriously, there's a point when you're making a TV show, a song, anything, and you go, dear God, this can't suck. I'm in big trouble. I'm in big trouble. And you hone it until it's something that you can kind of accept. And and especially TV. Remember stepping up to the plate every episode. That's a new swing at the bat, you know? Trying to hit a home run, you go, all right, hey, that's a base hit. That's not bad. They don't kick you off the baseball team for a base hit. That's good. So I think about all that stuff. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Great question.
Thanks, Beast.
Hi, my name is Nick.
Hi, Nick.
If anything,
Wait, Nick, where are you from?
sorry, I'm from Dallas, Texas.
Nice. Nice place.
If anything, I love home movies. I love Metalocalypse. The specific joke of taking it easy is just like one of my
Taking
favorite
it easy,
things.
yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, I was always curious, you know, how the heck did you guys get Mark Hamill on your show?
How do we get Mark Hamill on the show? It's a good question. Mark Hamill is one of the coolest people I've ever met in my life, by the way. He is so nice. He's so cool. He's so easygoing. And honestly, we were thinking of, in the early days of Metalocalypse, we had this idea of this kind of governmental tribunal, this kind of like Illuminati, this kind of watching, because it's kind of based on a documentary called The People versus John Lennon, which is about, like, you know, John Lennon was so powerful, his music was so big, almost like Taylor Swift right now, that she can influence an election, right? So this is big political stuff, but we're talking about that stuff. The Beatles, John Lennon, He was anti-war during Vietnam and all that stuff, and there was a documentary about people keeping tabs, tapping his phones, FBI, CIA. This guy's in trouble. He could really screw things up for Nixon, you know?
And there were a lot of political assassinations in the 60s, 70s, 80s. Crazy lone gunman, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So we wanted voices that didn't. So my voice would sound like I could do an older voice, but it would sound like guys in their 30s trying to sound older than they were. So we thought, what if we got actual kind of more grizzled voice? And someone said, "Hey, Mark Hamill's got a great voice." And I was like, "Well, I know he does a lot of voiceover. I knew about the Joker and the Batman series and everything. I know he was doing that stuff. But I thought also, okay, I don't want to just hire him because he's Luke Skywalker, though that's a pretty good reason to hire him, I have to say." And also, so he read for the part. He actually read an audition, and I thought, oh my God, I'm so happy I get to hire Luke Skywalker. Oh, he's so good. He's so great. So I was so happy, and I just thought, okay, when he comes here, everybody, let's just be nice to him and don't start bringing up Star Wars. But if he does, everybody shut the fuck up and let him talk about Star Wars, because he's probably got some good stuff to say. You got it? Has everybody got it? That was the rule, and he came in. I saw him like every week for years, and then he became Luke Skywalker again during the interim, And since then, he came back and did the movie. He did me such a solid by doing the Army of the Doomstar movie. He's so fucking cool. I love him, and he is just as cool as you would hope he would be. And I remember when I first met him, I listened to his audition, and it was so great. And I didn't even realize I had hired the great Lorraine Newman. I just heard a great actor, and I said, whoever this is going to be in every episode of the show. And Lorraine Newman from SNL, original SNL cast member, genius comedy person, and legend at this point too. Just because of her performance. Later on, I met her in person. I'm like, you're Lorraine Newman? You're on my show? But I was seriously based on her vocal talent, her dialogue, speaking skills, all that stuff. So I met him the first day we recorded the first episode, and I was really starstruck. My heart skipped a beat. I looked into his blue eyes, and I stopped breathing for him, and my heart stopped beating. And he was asking me, like, "Hey, Brendon, I really liked home movies. How did you do that? Were you improving? What was that, improvising?" And I kind of told him how he did it. But from that point on, he's also just a really cool, understands the job, and is very personable. So. Oh, it's so good to have him while we could afford him. So nice. He was so cool. Yeah, so thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Moonchild, and first I just want to say very quickly thank you so much, because I was a 14-year-old metalhead when your show came out, and all I wanted to do was play music and watch Adult Swim, so you just gave so much to my life, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
So my question for you is, you're talking about having a bunch of sketches in Pro Tools and all this sort of things and all the things you're working on in your life, and I'm young. I have a lot of ideas, and how do you keep your ideas organized and so they have an upward mobility? And how do you organize people to rally around the stuff you really want to do and make people join you and help you out with it?
That's a really good question. And it takes a long answer. So, I mean, first of all, organization is, look, I'm sure we're all musicians here. Is everyone here a musician for the most part? Yeah, pretty much, right? So we have a certain brain. I think we all share a similar brain. There's something about us that makes us kind of only focus on the things we're interested in. And organization isn't always the thing we're focused on. Organization is crazy. So I have to have big visual cues all the time. So I have to have a dry erase board. I have to be able to see it. I use it to write down ideas. I need to look at something all the time. So I need to be looking at things the way I organize my office and my desk and my laptop. I have to be able to see everything. And then how I organize the writing things that I'm working on, future ideas. This is a feature idea. This is an animated idea. This is this idea. This is that idea. And this is the music that goes with this idea. How do I organize that? Where do I put it all? So fortunately, just naming stuff the right name and putting it in the right file is helpful, but seriously, I just need to see everything. I need to look at a timeline. I need to see either 3x5 cards. If I'm sculpting out a movie, I need to see where it begins, where the middle is, and where the end is, all in my eye line. getting people to rally around stuff is seriously, no one's really rallied around anything I've done. I have to like talk them into it. I have to like go, like, I have the idea. I'm not even sure what it is, but if you keep letting me talk, I'll figure it out. I got into comedy because part of the idea, especially at that time, was it wasn't super saturated. We had the keys to a comedy club, and we like kind of like took it over, basically, me and Eugene and a few other comedians. And we got to use that space to our advantage. Getting into comedy meant that I wasn't in competition with another guitar player for that amount of time. I was in competition with nobody. Nobody else could be me. No one else could have my sense of humor. No one else can have my whatever my voice is. If I've even developed
persona, your voice,
my persona.
Whatever, yeah.
No one has my circumstance. No one has my parents, my sister, or my brother. No one has Renzo. No one has any of those people in my life. So no one's in competition with me as long as I'm truly myself. It's a crazy idea, but also when I'm doing stand-up, I was compelled to do it. I was interested in it. The same kind of OCD, ADD brains we all have. I was compelled. My brain dragged my body over there. I started doing it. And through stand-up, I learned that, okay, I'm a writer, I'm a director, and I'm the performer of my pieces. So I'm a writer. That's an important thing to remember. The writer is this is the most important thing that I am of anything. Technically, I can make it work. I can get in great shape, and I can play guitar. I can do all that stuff. But the writer part is the thing is going to land me the job. What is my concept, and how do I talk to other people about it? How do I get them excited about it? How do I clean up my work? So I'm constantly taking friends out for coffee or for dinner and saying, look, dinner's on me, coffee's on me, but we talk about my project. Got it? You read the pages beforehand, you get a free dinner. That's not bad, right? But we talk about my thing, and you tell me why you think it doesn't work, and I argue why I think it does work. That's your job, okay? And we'll be friends afterwards, and I'm going to come back stronger, because a first draft, allow it, whatever it is you're working on, from a song to anything, allow it to be trashed. Allow it to, there's a wonderful feeling, hi this side of the room, I haven't talked to you very much. There's a wonderful feeling in throwing trash away. You know, just throwing something that's just kind of not working, taking it, just running and just kicking it far, far away from you. There's a wonderful feeling of saying, that's it. But getting people to rally around you and like getting an agent or getting someone to help you out, that's what stand-up helped me do. Stand-up was this gauntlet that I threw myself in to scare me into having calluses, to not being, I'm not afraid talking to you guys right now. I can think very clearly. I couldn't do this when I was a kid. But being on stage gives me calluses and helps me. And my ultimate goal was, I want to be able to think clearly. I want to be able to be funny in the moment. I want to be able to communicate to people. And that's the thing. So musicians, all of us, I think, are naturally used to having a guitar in front of us, and something that kind of shields us from the outside world. But all the successful people that I've met, from Joe Satriani to Steve Vai to Tosin Abasi to Pliny to all these great musicians that are out, they're all good at communicating. They're really good at talking to someone else. They're really good at expressing their idea, and that's the really important part, I think, that I would say to musicians, is that you have the guts to come up behind that microphone and ask some questions. That's really important. Capitalize on that. You can do it whenever you want to. Walk up and ask a question to someone who for some reason you think they could answer your question. They will. If you stand up straight and ask for something, chances are pretty good someone's going to answer that question and give you a good answer, especially if they're a person worth approaching in the first place. But I'm also, listen, I keep thinking about the organization part. I'm also just such a fucking slob at the same time. And when I'm working, you can't get me to go to sleep. And when I'm not working, you can't wake me up. I mean, it's just seriously, I'm like the laziest person in the world, and then I work so hard that I turn into a madman. And so, it's ebbing and flowing. Because after I did, like, seriously, I did a movie, and I did a score album with an orchestra, and I did the Death Album 4. And then I did a tour, and I was like, I am not going to be doing anything for about 4 months. I'm going to sleep after conjuring the dragon's breath, like Merlin from Excalibur. Anyway, good movie. Check it out. I hope that helps. I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Yeah.
I don't know if anyone's going to have a better name than Moonchild or Beast.
I think Beast, Moonchild,
go for it.
And see, your name wasn't from Dungeons and Dragons, so I forgot it.
You guys are setting me up to disappoint everyone.
No. It's
My name's Justin.
Hey, Justin.
It's amazing to meet you. I went to the first Death Clock tour, the college tour.
Oh yeah, I call that the pretend tour.
I had to MySpace message your bass player to get on the list to get into the Northwestern show because I didn't go there.
Sure, great.
So
I remember that.
It was a minute ago.
Yeah.
So my question, I work in post-production. I just wrapped Avatar: Last Airbender, and
That's awesome.
I have my own like punk rock comedy kids show. I have an awesome sizzle. I have a funny pilot script. I have a dope theme song. I'm a musician, so I have a great theme song.
Yeah.
And I have my pitch book is actually a comic book. It's ready to rock. I'm starting the next episode while I'm unemployed right now.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for how I can, because I want to be the one to make it, how I can make this from what I have into a show? And I know you said don't ask this, but is it possible I could get you to look at what I made?
I don't know that it's possible to get me to look at it, but I'll tell you this. I mean, it's possible to do anything, really. But when you have all that stuff, this is a crazy industry. This strike has kind of brought it to its knees in some way, and I think it's going to take about a year or so for it to kind of find its way again. It's so nice to be a musician right now and to not be playing the game in Hollywood, truthfully. It is really nice. It's definitely like, it's really great. But I would say if you have an idea and if you have the wherewithal, I think about guys like Mike Judge, and to me he's a hero because he's I don't know, there's like a WTF interview with him where he said, well, I wanted to learn animation, so I went to the library and I got a book on how to animate, and then I got some paints and some celluloid, and I started animating because the book taught me how to do it, and then I had all these cartoons and I would start showing them to people. And then they became popular, and that was just the trajectory. He made the thing first.
That was a great Mike Judge, by the way.
I don't know if that's what he sounds like it or anything.
No, it really is.
Yeah,
but a little more of a drawl, but yeah.
Yeah, but seriously, it's so practical how people get started in this thing. Now, I use stand-up as a way to kind of like telegraph the idea that I exist into the world. Because I was the loudest voice in the room. Everyone has to pay attention to me. So I knew that was a stepping stone to getting work or something like that. I'd say make the damn thing. Don't wait for anybody to do it. Seriously, make the damn thing. Start tomorrow. Find out how to do what you need to do, because seriously, people are learning everything from YouTube. You don't need to like go become an animator. You can learn it from YouTube. You probably have access to some really great people through like the post-production world too. I'd say if this were seriously even 10 years ago, I'd say make your thing, enter into a festival, get eyes on it. Seriously, because what you're asking for really is somebody else to pay for it, right? And maybe air it, right?
Call me out. Yeah.
But what you have, if you're and seriously, right now is this kind of ugly time where people are only interested in IP, in intellectual property that pre-exists, which is probably what your comic book is already, and all that stuff. And people are faking IP right now. People are writing novellas to make it seem as if this idea exists, so that when they go in and pitch it somewhere, but networks right now, I don't even know who's buying animation right now. That's a crazy thing. I get pitches all the time. People give me IP that is like fake IP, and they say, well, you want to make a show about this? And I go, who do I sell it to? What is Adult Swim right now? What is this? What is that?
And the best is when the fake IP was made by AI.
There are too many. There's just too many acronyms and AI, IP. And then, by the way, all that stuff sucks. But yeah, I'd say like get it in front of people if you can. If you can get it, there are so many festivals. There's so many film festivals. There's so many. If you can get your idea or a pilot version of it, or you can just make it your favorite version. Don't think about what a network wants. Don't think about anything else. Don't think about who it's going to sell to. Do the thing that would make you laugh. That's my real serious thing. As far as like the nuts and bolts, honestly, I pitch stuff all the time. I'm always in a deal where I'm working on something. I'm on a deal. I'm in a deal right now that I cannot talk about, but this audience would be really excited about. Will it reach fruition? I'm not sure. Most likely not, right? So I'm up against the exact same thing you are, but and I have stuff to point and go, look, check this out. Hey, got an audience. Look at this. Hey, ticket sales. Look at that. Look at all these things. And still, I have the same struggle that everyone in this room has. So just like stand-up, get in front of people, get in front of an audience, and you're going to sort out the way you want to do it. You're going to find a cheap way to do it, and it's going to make you a better producer, and it's going to make you it's going to make you what you, and also you'll get to look at it and go, oh, maybe I was wrong, maybe I was right, maybe I can fix this along the way, maybe I can make it even better. But I can't greenlight your project for you. I can't greenlight my project for me. It's a really crazy business, but I would say if you're compelled to do it for the love of God, please go do it.
Hell yeah.
There.
Love it. Yeah, and that's the thing. If you make the thing and it has value, then you have that much more leverage when
Absolutely.
it has built an audience.
And not
on
only
its own,
that, you own it. You
Yeah.
own it. I'll tell you, I'm about to go on tour with Death Clock again. This is IP that I created, but I don't own. So I have to license it from Warner Brothers every time I go out. So that's like that. I have to spend extra money, and I have to hope ticket sales cover for all that stuff. There's a lot of stuff that goes into getting all the way to. It's like how a bill becomes a law. It's just to get the show on the road. There really is crazy, but there's so much power in ownership. So I'd say that's another piece of advice.
How a bill becomes a law. Also,
Yeah.
great animation.
Yes.
Hi, Tyler from Philadelphia.
Hey, Tyler.
So, question is, what were the hardships and how did you overcome them from taking Metalocalypse as a show and translating into a full-on stage performance with now multiple tours and everything like that?
Thanks for the question. The show was seriously. The show was always really, really hard to make. Anytime you involve music, everything starts getting really complicated. You start wishing you had a show that was more like King of the Hill. It's just people are just talking to each other, and it's really cool and it's really funny, and you love the characters. I went and made everything really complicated. So there were all these music elements, getting the fingers right and all that stuff. So I had 3 different ideas. One was if I'm doing music for the records, it has to stand on its own. The TV show has to stand on its own. And then the live tour has to be something that if you don't know about the records or the TV show, and if you saw this, hopefully that will stand on its own as well. So very simply from the first season on, I thought, okay, I'm going to write music for every single episode. That's my challenge to myself. No one's asking me to do this. I think it's important. I bet I can do it. I bet I can do it. I bet I can do it maybe. Well, we'll see. Anyway, that turned out to be the least difficult part. Writing character and writing story is a little bit more difficult. It's a little bit more architecture involving little arcs and all those kinds of things. And then somewhere in that same kind of early pitch, I thought, okay, if I write a song every episode, I do 20 episodes or so, then I could probably have enough material for a record. So I would elongate the songs, I'd put them on a record, then I'd play it live. So how would I do that? I'd play live. So, well, the Gorillaz did it, okay, but they were behind a scrim, and I really saw a video of this, and I really thought, I'm losing connection with the audience. I would put the band almost in front of the screen, or the scrim in that case, and I would have a little bit more connection with the audience. I think that's important. They don't really need to see me. We're the pit band. The real band doesn't exist. So how can I make... That's the ballet. We're the pit orchestra, right? We'll connect with the audience. If you want to watch our fingers, you can. And we're going to have fun, and we're going to just... But basically, we don't look like the band, so you can watch us if you want to, but the big show is this crazy animated thing. How do I sync up the music and the sound? Well, I've got a stereo track. One track can be a click track, and the other one can be like, I don't know if I have keyboards or harmonies or something like that. I can put that on the other track, and that's exactly what we did. In fact, our whole live timeline is on one Premiere file, and it's an hour long. And we press play, and we hope nothing fucks up. And it's really scary every single time we go on stage. Every single time we're like, gee whiz, I hope the computer doesn't crash. Seriously, every single time we go on stage, we're like,
And is there a backup computer?
Nope.
With the Premiere file?
It really is, seriously. I don't know what it is. We're just so fucking insane sometimes. I don't know what it is about it. Like idiotic daredevils going on stage, daring to be, like, if somebody walks by and just closes a laptop, our show is so screwed. But it would also be pretty funny, and we are doing a comedy show too. So the idea is like, when I also conceived of, I had to have a new concept. The record has to be like, what if this band was real? The TV show this is a workplace comedy. It just turns out they're an extreme metal band. The live show is, what if we had like a theme park and there was like a Death Clock ride, or like the T2 ride at Universal Studios, like something that's a little bit more interactive. There's a good guy, there's a bad guy, boo. Good guy, yay, and chastise the audience, you all suck, woo. And then Death Clock comes out, yay. And so big silly wrestling match of just kind of fun. And the feeling when I look at the audience, I can see that that thing is translating to them, because it's just smiles all the way around. It's just people really enjoying or singing along or having fun with her friend, whatever. Because at this point, a lot of people were like 14 or whatever, and it's been 15 years more since the show came out. Now they're in their 30s, and that crucial age, that's my audience. It's me when I was that age. So when I was 13, 14, so I thought, this is that show for them. And if I do it right, I can find me out there and talk to them. And me comes in a lot of different shapes, but it's some musician who has a creative, thoughtful mind and wants to do music themselves, or comedy, or both, you know? So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, thank you. And see you in Riverside.
Thanks. Love it.
Oh, I'll see you in Riverside.
I'm going to have to be bad cop again only because we have already gone over.
I'll do quicker answers. I realize I can talk a
not your
blue
fault.
streak, but no, it's all right. Hi there.
Hi, my name is Israel, and I'm a really big fan of Metalocalypse and Death Clock.
Oh, thank you.
And I was, my question is for the album, you know, and the movie.
Yeah.
What was your process on writing the Song of Salvation?
That was a lot. That was one of those things where I'm kind of pulling. I know what the Song of Salvation is supposed to. The feeling of it is supposed to be. Really, I thought, what can I do? Okay, I like these kinds of big, epic, kind of, really kind of like a mid-tempo ballad, but you can go double time and you can go half time in that too, you know? And just have like a, and I think about Metallica. Metallica's long intros, they're long ostinatos. That the greatest thing about thrash, Slayer, Metallica, Exodus, Testament, all those guys, they would just start in a direction, and because they have so much momentum, they could zigzag into a labyrinth and flop you out anywhere, you know? And I thought that's kind of a cool thing. I love epic intros. I like to just sit there and not have any harmony for a long time, just one note. And slowly but surely start introducing the idea of the harmony. And now, I also knew I had a theme already that's in the score. It's in the very first part of the movie. And there is a piece of score that is the chorus of this movie that keeps on ruminating throughout the whole movie. And I know I'm going to make use of that somewhere. But in my first version, I didn't. I was going and I was like slowly building. I thought, okay, there's a nice little chord change here that makes it feel like it's moving forward. There's something emotional happening. This is a roiling feeling, a feeling that I think we're going to die. And I also feel triumphant about this idea. So it's a complicated emotion. Seriously, like, what does that feel like? What does that sound like? So I seriously go to the drawing board until I go, yep, that's something I can stand behind. And I try out chords, and fortunately, I'm usually in like one key. I'm usually in C standard, and I'm usually going, okay, I'm limited to this key because that's the lowest note on my guitar. So I'm going to stay in that. I don't need any extra options confusing me or fucking me up anyway. I'm going to stay in C. And what are my relative minors? What are my parallel minors? What are my parallel majors? What chords can I borrow? How can I make this more interesting? How do I get from this section to that section? How do I do that same little contradiction of regular time, double time, half time? You know, how do I just keep doing that and circulating that on top of something that hopefully will land as a cool harmonic idea that will make this 14-year-old fat so excited with his arms folded? How can I get that guy paying attention, being a little bit more excited? And by the way, boy, have I put pressure on myself, because this is a song that the whole movie is based on. How do I make this land and be worthy of that? And so I definitely put the pressure on myself, and that's basically what I was thinking. And everything else is just rinsing and repeating and pulling that slot at the machine until I get the right answer. So that's it. There's nothing other than willpower, and that's it. It's just seriously just willpower. I have no idea how I'm going to make this work, but if I don't, boy, am I an asshole.
Thank you. Wild Stallions. A lot of pressure on one song.
Exactly. It's the same pressure that Wild Stallions had. Hi there.
Hi there. My name is Steven with the V. I am from here, California. I'm a big fan of your show, and I'm really grateful and thank you for showing Metalocalypse. There is a metal show and animation show. I'm a big fan of animation and rock and metal genre.
Yeah.
My big question to you is, what is your biggest advice for people, or even for me, if I want to pursue animation but also like to do music at the same time? What is like the best advice to pursue first, like on the first step before?
That's a good question. I mean, the truth is you already know the answer. you don't know that you know it, but it's inside of you. There's one that is just a little bit more in the forefront for you right now. And if you go on a long walk, you're going to sort it out. By the way, the answers are always there. They're inside of your head somewhere. Smoke some weed, go on a long walk. You're going to sort it out. Seriously, it is my way of solving every single problem. I know there's a question. You're lucky because you know what the question is right now. Which one am I going to start out with? Which one is it going to be? You're going to go on a long walk tomorrow. You know, maybe put some music on that doesn't kind of like something, I don't know, without vocals, and you're going to just zone out for a little bit. And you're going to ask yourself the right question, and the right answer is going to happen. And that's part of being creative, too. Setting up that landscape where you have enough stuff swirling around and knowing that there's a question. Every time I leave my laptop when I'm writing, I go, okay, here's the script. Whatever happens, I know that this scene that I just wrote is total trash, and it will not appear in this thing I'm working on. Why is this trash? Why do I hate it? Why is it driving me crazy? Close the laptop. Go on a walk. And think. The writers of the world who sit and write novels, Stephen King goes on walks all the time. I'm always studying creativity. I'm always studying other people's creativity, from David Lynch to Stephen King to John Cleese.
Stephen King did get hit by a car on a walk, too. So
yeah, don't walk in front of a car. That's a good point. Don't walk above or below or in front of a car. Yeah, but seriously, I'm always also, everyone here is creative, it seems like, and that's the question is how do we throw a saddle on our creativity and ride it off into the sunset? And that's what I ask of myself. I've got a lot of ideas, and sometimes they do frazzle and spin out like shooting stars, and you're like, I don't have that. And then something does fall into your lap, and the question is, why is this working? Why isn't it? I know that there's also, as long as I'm talking about this, I think this is kind of important, because everyone has to figure out their own relationship with their own creativity. For me, I realize I've got about 2 to 3 hours of hard blank page writing every day as a script writer, thinking hard, coming up with a dialogue, trying to sort out the relationships. I've got about that where I think as hard as I can and I'm miserable. And writing is sometimes like, I've compared it to willing on a cold or a flu. You're like in a bathrobe and you're like blowing on tea and you're like, oh, I don't feel good. Oh, I don't feel good. That's what writing is. And
they've also said being a writer is like having homework every night for the rest of your life.
Yeah, it is. It really is like having homework. Oh my God, I just did a rewrite on a project where I'm like, oh no, I'm feeling cold. I think I'm dying. Like all that stuff. But I have those 3 hours where I say, okay, I worked hard in the morning, so I have the rest of the day. The rest of my day is devoted to saying, okay, brain, you know why this sucks. I'll talk to you later, but you're off for the rest of the day. Let's go to the movies. Let's do something that inspires creativity. What do I love? Let's buy a record. Let's listen to a record I already have. Let's go watch something that inspires me, that pertains to something that I'm working on, and I'm just going to intake because I output in the morning. Ask yourself the question, walk around until you have the answer. You'll find it. Don't walk in front of a car.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for advice.
Thank you. Yeah.
Wish you luck for your next tour with Baby Metal and Dragon Force.
Oh, yeah, thank you very much. I'm looking forward to hanging out with Baby Metal again. By the way, what a fucking dream tour that was. Baby Metal is so fucking cool. It's like hanging out with 3 princesses from outer space. They wave it, and you're like, oh, they waved at me. Oh, my God. They're seriously so charming and so wonderful, and their band is so fucking good.
So good.
Yeah. Hello.
Hey, my name is Terrell. I'm from
Terrell.
Kentucky.
Hey, how's it going?
Well, and yourself?
I'm good, thanks. I'm having fun.
Well, like everyone else here, I'm a huge fan of yours. I'm 32, so I was a fan back in the home movie days.
You're my demographic.
I was thinking that when you mentioned it.
Yeah, good to see you. Yeah.
So much so, like, leading up to my question, like, you're the reason why, like, if anybody here recognizes me, like, my guitar, like, I have an Explorer.
Oh, yeah? Oh, awesome.
Squizgar single-handedly is the reason why, like, I lusted for an Explorer till I got one.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Right now, James Hetfield's going,
What about me? Yeah.
No.
But also, that's why I have it. It's because James Hetfield, so.
But
yeah.
no, I wanted to know about your gear, like your gear choice, like what made you wanted to use like Thunderbird,
the Thunder Horse, yeah, all that stuff, yeah. Oh, the Thunderbird bass, yeah.
And
gotcha,
the Flying V, the Explorer, and like you use that stuff for like your actual live shows too. And, like,
yeah. Though I think I'm going to start switching it up. My studio was robbed about a year ago. And yeah, it sucks. I know. What are you going to do? What are you going to do, right? What do you do when someone steals all the shit you like, right? You have to move forward. They didn't steal my fingers, so that's good. So I can still use them on other guitars. But now I'm really being a little bit more agnostic about my guitars. I just played one of Tosin's guitars at his at his place, and I've got like a Jason Richardson guitar being built. So I have a lot of guitars. There's so much cool stuff has been happening in guitar technology. I love that stuff. I have a Strandberg at home. I have all kinds of cool guitars, but I have my old original Explorer that I'm going to take on tour. Gear-wise, you know, I used Marshall amps and Gibsons. Also on the show, I thought, okay, if I'm me and I'm watching this show, I want to see actual guitars. Because first of all, what are we going to do? Design a bunch of wonky guitars, and I'm going to go, no, yes, no, and it's all going to be a rip-off something else. So I called Gibson. I cold called them, and I said, listen, I'm doing an animated show, and I really do love Explorers and Vs and Thunderbirds and all that stuff. Let's do something together. Because I also thought, if I'm like a teenager and I'm just searching, I'm just going around for any guitar information from magazines and seeing gear and splash pages and all that stuff. I wanted to do that for young musicians who get excited about stuff. I want to put a splash page, so like MXR, Dunlop, BMG, Seymour Duncan, all this stuff that Pro Tools, Avid, you know, Line 6, all this stuff that I used to make this show. I just wanted to make sure everyone like you would see it and kind of go, oh, I'm interested. I'm a little bit more interested than I was before, because what other TV show shows the gear that you use to record the music? So that's all part of it. Currently, I am the producer of my live show. So like I said, I'm the proprietor. I am taking on the risk for the show. So my idea is pack light, and everybody's using quad cortexes and Axifex and all that stuff. I am completely on board with the quad cortex. In fact, on the last tour, I kept my guitar in standard tuning and had it drop to C standard the whole time. So I was playing standard in what you were hearing, because I was just like so used to standard tuning.
I've done the same.
So yeah, and it's got really, really good tracking. I heard a little weird stuff on the top end, so I think this time I'm going to try something different. But quad cortex, guitar, that's it. All my presets. Maybe I'll put them on the quad cortex page or something like that.
Your Explorer, the gray one, is that like a signature series?
The
The one that
yeah,
you
I
do
made that
live.
for. So we made a short run of those years ago. That's called the Thunder Horse, named after the song Thunder Horse. So those, and it's just a standard Explorer. Really, it's no different than one you probably already have. It's got like classic, you know, medium output humbuckers, and that's
Mine's
about
is a
it.
custom. It's ripped out to my pleasure.
Well, why do you have to sound so seductive when you say that?
Because it's like that.
Why are you trying to seduce me so hard?
Business marketing.
I like it. Good. It's a whole character. I'm seeing it all come together. Anyway, yeah, I'm always exploring. I'm always trying to do something different. I saw Pliny's pedal board at this Steve Ijo Satriani thing, and he's got like the Seymour Duncan power stage, and he's got a quad cortex, and that's his rig, and that's a lot of people's rigs nowadays. It may get a little homogenized, a little scary for that reason, but it really works, and there's good tone, and the actual best gear that you can possibly get is the one that just wants you to make you play your instrument. That is the absolute, I have all my stuff in storage, all the stuff that didn't get stolen in storage, all my amps and everything, because I was remodeling my house. But the amp that I play all the time, seriously, that I love playing, is that little tiny Black Star backstage amp that takes like all these little, you know, AA batteries. That has the best tone of any amp I've ever played. I sound like old Van Halen. I sound like 1978. It sounds so good. I recommend that amp more than any other amp that I've ever played. I love it. And seriously, it makes me want to play my guitar. And I can carry it from room to room with me. So there you go. I am like, I don't even know if I'm endorsed by anybody anymore, but like all the Gibson stuff is always great. I love the Strandberg stuff. Nick Johnston sent me some of his guitars. They're fucking awesome. His whole Schecter series, god damn, they're wonderful, great tone, great playing guitars. So, I don't know, I'll play anything as long as it makes me want to play. That's the rule.
I hear that.
Yeah, rock and roll. Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, Brendon. Nice to meet you. My name is Manolo. I am from Mexico. That's why I'm Mexican.
Sure,
and,
sure. That all adds up. So far, your story's checking out.
Yeah. And I want to thank you very much, because your show has inspired me when I was a teenager. My teacher, my guitar teacher, was teaching me, and he was like, "Hey, check out this show. It's about some stupid guys that play this very good metal music." And I checked it out, and definitely they were very stupid, and they played amazing metal music. And I was right now I focus more into funk music, but Death Clock has inspired me. Actually, it still inspired me, the music, and I'm so happy. And thank you very much for that.
Man. Thank you.
And I wanted to ask you, what's your process of creating the characters? How do you make them? Is talking about the personalities, the different personalities of each character. How do you come up with the ideas of the personality of each character and make them interact in order to be always very, very fun?
Okay, I'll ask this answer. This one I have a very simple answer for, because the idea was, first of all, I like funk a lot. I studied with Tomo Fujita back in Berklee College of Music too, so he was my teacher as well. And he really had. There was a point where my funk playing was really good. I don't study it as much, but I should. Secondly, the idea was, okay, I sold this show based on a pitch. I said, hey, here's the idea of the show. As the head of the network, I called. I go, this is a show about an extreme metal band. They don't know, they're inept celebrities. They don't know what time it is. They don't know how a doorknob works. They don't know anything. But they're the biggest act on earth, and murder and death and darkness surrounds them everywhere. And I think I'm going to make it so you can't understand anything they're saying. And I think I'm pretty serious about that too. And the guy said, green light. And he said, I was like, boy, I caught him on a good day. Okay. And he said, well, write it up, is what he said. Write up the idea of the show. And at that point, I didn't really know. I didn't know enough. So I said, okay, I'll get back to you. Give me a couple months. So what I did instead was I started just writing riffs, and I started programming drums, and I started making music, and I started thinking, maybe this will tell me who the band is. So, and I kept tuning lower, and I kept getting more, just tritones and more kind of ugliness in it. My natural, if you want me to write music, I'm going to try to write something really pretty. I really like harmony, and I really like hooks, and I really like pretty things. And I'm kind of extracting those from this. If this is extreme metal, death metal, something close to it, whatever its own genre is. So I realized, okay, I'm going to have to still have this. Since there's no melody in the vocal, if I'm doing kind of a classic death metal growl, I don't have that melody. So what can I do in the guitars that can kind of take on the melody or take on a little bit more exciting harmony? I studied a lot of harmony classes, traditional harmony classes, where we're studying kind of fire and brimstone, Bach and Haydn and stuff like that, and counterpoint and things like that. And I thought, how much of that can I put in here too? Because that's always just really works. I love Queen. And I thought, what if Queen and Metallica had a child and something like that, and a little bit of Cannibal Corpse splashed around there? What would that sound like? And that's kind of what I was thinking of, and that's kind of what I was driving towards. And I thought, okay, I need at least 2 guitar players because I like those harmonies. I love Brian May. I love Iron Maiden. Okay. I love anytime people harmonize guitars. My ears just get all excited. And so I thought, okay, there's going to be more than one. There are going to be 2 guitar players, and there's going to be a bass player. And in heavy metal, in the era that I grew up in the 80s and the 90s, you could not hear the bass. You couldn't hear the bass. We made a joke in one episode, make like a bass player and be inaudible. And it's funny because it's kind of true, but bass is now powerful, and I love bass, and I love playing bass, and I played all the bass on the last record. But I thought, what would that do to your ego if you can't be heard? You'd probably try to make up for it in every single other thing in your life, and then that gave us Murderface. He's like middle management trying to prove he has a job. That's what I thought, and I thought that's something I can work with. That's something I can work with. And I thought, okay, the drummer, I don't know. I want to make him have a musical history. I love these musical drummers. I love Dave Grohl. I love Roger Taylor from Queen. He could sing a song. He could front the band if he wanted to. I like that idea. Let's think about that over there. Who's the lead singer? Well, we just kept on picturing George Corpse Grinder Fisher from Cannibal Corpse, and I was just like, it's kind of hard to unsee that. He's got to be something like that, but we don't know his attitude. We don't know his personality, so we're going to invent a personality. It's kind of like the quarterback.
Before we knew how much he loves Target and stuffed animals and rainbows and stuff.
Before World of Warcraft. It was before he started showing stuffed animals online every second. Yeah, it's true. But Yeah, he's a lot nicer, and and he's really well adjusted, and he's got like good relationship with his parents and everything. That's the real Corpse Grinder. Nathan Explosion, actually, we kind of use a little bit of George Corpse Grinder's, kind of good relationship with his family, with Nathan, because everybody else had like terrible relationship. We're all Gen Xers. We all hate our parents, So that was part of Nathan. We're like, well, okay, he's gonna look like this, but he's gonna be a brooding kind of idiot, and he's gonna be the quarterback of the band, and the visionaries are probably the drummer and the singer, right? Okay, then we have these two guitar players, and we thought, what if one of them is kind of a little bit more Yngwie Malmsteen, and the other one is just not as good? What if you have the fastest guitar player alive and then the second fastest in the same band? What does that do to their dynamic? One of them is trying to prove that he exists every day, and all that stuff. So all these little kind of confrontations start kind of coming together and erupting, and you realize we can just hang out and also a band, like it or not, every band has someone on the bottom of the totem pole and someone at the top of that totem pole. And that dynamic probably will never change, but it's always trying to change. So
it's like the Gene and Paul thing where they're like, a band is a car, and two guys are in the front, and two guys are in the
right, yeah. But it is. But also, I read all those books at the same time. So I was reading the Kiss biographies. I was watching any documentary that I could about music, about bands trying to coexist and survive. Dig, if you haven't seen that one, about the Dandy Warhols and the Brian Jonestown Massacre, is just like a portrait of a hot mess, and it's a fantastic documentary, and it's amazing they're so open and honest. Metallica's Some Kind of Monster is, I think, a masterpiece of a documentary. Everyone learned, Metallica is actually people.
Yeah.
They're actually humanoids. They're not just celebrity rock star super metal guys. So all those things, when in doubt, I'm looking for fodder that will kind of prove my theorem. If I have some crazy idea, is there something else that exists that proves my theorem? It's even extra points if it's over 20 to 30 years old. So I'm thinking about that kind of stuff and what is happening in the zeitgeist currently that can help me kind of prove my theorem, right? And so that's when I'm thinking of creative stuff. Anybody who's writing a project or anything, all those things really are helpful. Just how do you prove a law? How do you prove the theorem? So all that stuff kind of came into a swirl, and then I would start kind of messing around with voices. Again, I had this kind of like idea of this kind of hybrid Scandinavian thing that has no reality in Scandinavia or Norway or whatsoever. This accent is almost like they grew up watching Popeye cartoons, and that's how they learned English. So that was just fucking around with the idea of talking wrong. Is always, since the Marx Brothers, I've always loved that. So that to me is also malapropism and comedy and things like that. So those were all the things that kind of went into a swirl, and then you start experimenting. And there's a point where when I started doing the characters, I go bye-bye, and the characters take over, and I can't remember things that I improvised or anything. So can I think like the character? Can I improvise in their voice? And once I can improvise in their voice, then I start thinking, yeah, I'm off to the races. I can do something with this. Nice. So that's kind of an answer of just building characters and stuff. Is there somebody, I would ask Mark Hamill, like, where's this voice coming from? He's like, there's this old actor, and I'm doing my impression of him. Or this is, oftentimes
modulating it just this way. And
yeah, just
that's
something.
every great band too, right? Like I was interviewing Billy Vallow from him once at the height of him, and he was like, him is just U2 plus Black Sabbath with a little bit of typo negative, and it's like that. And it may not even sound that way to someone else, but that's like where
that's the etymology of it. Exactly.
Yeah, like what if someone took this and this, but also this, and then it was through my personal experience, and then it becomes something new.
Absolutely. I think
Metallica's Diamond Head plus Motorhead.
I think, like in comedy, it's just like music. You kind of start out by doing impressions of your heroes, Okay. So comedians go on stage and you go, this guy likes Steve Martin, I can tell, because he's got an arrow through his head, or whatever. Or they're doing some kind of an impression of somebody. Yeah. Or
there's a lot of David Tells out there.
Yeah, but also there were a lot of Louis C.K.'s out there after Louis C.K. So like whoever's the popular comedian, people kind of start doing their, and then hopefully they can start covering their tracks and become more of themselves along the way. So again, the etymology of Death Clock was always Metallica and Queen with a little bit of Cannibal Corpse and no melody, So I thought that's my kind of my North Star, that I'm kind of trying to glide anywhere near that direction. I'll probably get something right. And then how do I make it new and fresh each time I go back to the drawing board? So that's an idea. That's the idea of making these idiots. And also, like I said, it's a workplace comedy, and there's a bottom of the totem pole, there's the top of the totem pole, all those dynamics in an office. It's like an office works. This show is an office workplace comedy. Can you believe that? It makes no sense that it is, but it is. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for coming out,
Yeah.
asking great questions,
Yeah, thanks for
making
listening.
this thing
yeah.
another success. Ladies and gentlemen, I know you just clapped, but I'm going to make you do it again because Brendon Small.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. I'm going to stand up. Thank you very much. It's nice to be here. Enjoy your studies.